Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I want to talk to you about the absolute disaster that is the unveiling of the PlayStation 5 Pro. As you could probably tell from the title and video thumbnail, I was not impressed by this presentation and have quite a number of negative things to say about it, mostly the fact that Sony just seems to be coming for our money without offering us anything in exchange. The gameplay today is just going to be one, maybe two games of Black Ops 6 in their entirety so you can see me struggle, and it's very relevant because games like Black Ops 6 are cross-gen compatible on PlayStation 4, so even if you're playing them on PlayStation 5 Pro, there are limits to how good they can look. So let's go ahead and skip straight into the specs of the PlayStation 5 Pro, and then I'll talk about why this was such a terrible idea. For the specs, we're going to be referencing this base image, which as you can see is made by a guy on Twitter named ZubiTech. I'm going to give him credit for it. It was just really easy for me to grab. In terms of CPU, there was a minor improvement. We've gone from 7 to 4 or 5 nanometer, AMD Zen 2 to Zen 4, a little bit higher clock speed. GPU, considerable performance improvement. We have an AMD Radeon RDNA 2 for PlayStation 5. The Pro version has an RDNA 3. The PlayStation 5 Pro has double the compute units of the regular PlayStation 5. The gigahertz variability is not very high. The overall theoretical output is very different, with the PlayStation 5 Pro being roughly double the amount of teraflops, and they both have some type of ray tracing acceleration, but the Pro does it better. The other specs are less impactful. The PlayStation 5 Pro has another 4 gigabytes of RAM with a slightly bigger bus and speed. We do have roughly double the storage space. That's good because games are gigantic. And the ports and the Bluetooth and compatibility are roughly similar. Of course, improved on the Pro, but only barely for most people's experiences. And the Pro has an AI accelerator built into it. But this spec sheet doesn't really cover the whole problem of what we have going on with the console, namely that this upgrade is for a $700 console. I don't know if they think I'm Richie Rich or what, but this $700 console with marginal spec upgrades also has no disk drive in it. And a lot of people actually really enjoy the disk drive to watch their physical media on, or they just don't like downloading these gigantic games. Some people collect the disc, but we've got no disk drive, marginal spec increase, and a significant price increase. $700 is a lot of money, but I do want to mention that today's video is sponsored by Mixline, which is actually completely free to install. It's an all-in-one audio mixing, editing, output program that allows you to take over all the audio settings for your PC and do impressive stuff. It's a godsend for content creation if you're using OBS or streaming or anything like that, and just generally really good for audio management. Totally free to download, link down there below. Doesn't cost $700 unlike the PlayStation 5 Pro. The big one though for the PlayStation 5, the one that's been touted, is the improvement to the GPU. And it's true, we've got double the compute units and we've got theoretically double the teraflops, but the GPU upgrade is, depending on who you ask, I've seen a lot of different comparisons here, roughly equivalent to an AMD Radeon RX 6800, or some sites list the 7700 XT, some sites list a Ryzen 7 3700X. Neither of these are really insane, like powerful, like gonna blow you away type GPUs. But yes, the GPU is better, but is it groundbreaking? Is it beating a PC, even a medium end build? It's really not. And the CPU is objectively better, not radically so, but we do have better performance out of the CPU. But most modern games don't even utilize CPUs for graphics in the way that they used to. We've pretty much swapped over to all GPU, which is one of the reasons they didn't feel the need to massively increase the processor power or speed or anything about it. However, there were some supposed software level improvements. So the more powerful GPU is going to allow for more computing power, which means more polys, more background details, more stuff you can put on screen, and of course, faster rendering, which is good for increasing frame rate or maintaining frame rate or loading things in. So the more powerful GPU can do that. They have a more advanced ray tracing algorithm built into it, so ray tracing will look more beautiful, reflections will be nicer, and I guess it can be prettier games. One of the more interesting piece of technological upgrades they've added to the PlayStation 5 Pro is the PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, which is a very fancy way to say they're upscaling your image using AI. It's very similar to NVIDIA DLSS, though I admit it is a different technology. It's not exact, but same ballpark if you're looking for a familiar comparison. And this will allow you to upscale your games to 4K, or for some games up to 8K with no loss to frame rate or resolution, if you don't mind the AI upscaling resolution, which is always a little bit wonky. And I'm going to come back around to this after all of my complaints, but I do think that the super resolution might be very useful for PSVR 2. So again, wild, minor improvements, $700 price tag, and quietly, without telling anybody, Sony has increased the prices on their PlayStation 5 controllers. The standard DualSense controller went up by $5, so it went from $75 to $80. And if you're buying the DualSense Edge, which is their rough equivalent of a SCUF or controller with paddles, that one went up by $10. Even though the technology didn't change at all, Sony increased the price on the controllers. It's honestly starting to feel like grocery prices, where they're increasing them just because they can. I feel like this is especially insulting for gamers. It just genuinely insults our intelligence, because you can build a better gaming PC for the same or less amount of money. And I'm going to go over a couple of those in a minute, but I do want to acknowledge that I know not everybody wants a PC. A lot of people want a console. It hooks up to the TV more easily. It's simple. It's more difficult to be hacked. The games are already optimized for it. You don't have to think about it a whole lot. So I get that, and there's a little intangibility in this comparison, but I want to show you 3 gaming websites that show you how much it costs to build a PC equivalent to the PlayStation 5 Pro. First up is IGN, and I know that there are jokes to be made about that, but they do have a pretty comprehensive breakdown where they show all of the PC parts. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down past that, down toward the very bottom when we look at price. They were able to build a gaming PC for about $863 that has roughly the same specs as the $700 PS5 Pro. But at the end of the day, that's a PC that you can upgrade for much less money than getting a new console if you just want to swap out components later. Similarly, WePC, who's specializing in PC, came up with a more shocking number, saying that they could build an equivalent PC for $691. And again, that's a PC that offers a lot more flexibility for everything, even beyond gaming, instead of just gaming like the PlayStation 5 would. And then there's a different website called Pursuits. It's Men's Journal. They had a similar breakdown where they listed the most equivalent parts and tried to build a PC. And they came up with one that was about $873, or about $900 if you wanted to go a little bit fancier. So for the exact same amount of money, you can build a gaming PC that has almost exactly the same amount of gaming power, or, depending on how you want to do it, for slightly more money, you can significantly upgrade your gaming experience, but also get just an everything box that does browsing. It does all of your media content. It can be a server. You can do work on it. I'm just a big fan of PC, and I feel that for consoles to provide value against a PC, they need to have an equivalent gaming experience at a lower price, because a console is never going to replace all of the work and word processing that you do on a PC. I mean, I'm sitting in front of a PC now with a studio and lights and computer and OBS going and recording and doing all of these other interesting tasks that, again, a PlayStation can't, but the PC can for the same amount of money. This would be a totally different conversation if the PlayStation 5 Pro were $400 or $500 or something that a PC could never hope to get down to in price. So then finally, I have to ask you, who is this for? Maybe it's a steal for Scrooge McDuck, who can go swimming through his money and doesn't have the technical expertise to build a PC. Maybe it's a fun thing for Richie Rich to have so he can play on his 8K TV. But I genuinely believe that the PlayStation 5 Pro is a giffen good, a very high price item, like the gold iPods they used to sell, or the I Am Rich app when the iPhone first came out. It's just for super fans that have 8K TVs, but perhaps aren't tech savvy enough to build a nice PC to get 8K output. And I think that Sony completely missed the mark on this one. The PlayStation 5 Pro improvements are marginal at best, and the new technologies that they deploy only affect a tiny sliver of the market. The actual core gaming experience isn't meaningfully improved for 99.5% of the players, because not many people are doing 8K TVs. Not many people are like really hyped for ray tracing or AI upscaling or any of these kind of improvements, I'll say, and they're maintaining high prices on the regular PlayStation 5 while charging $700 for this one and even increasing prices on the DualSense controllers. Sony must think they're a grocery store. It feels like they're just inflating prices for no particular reason. In all of human history, as technology gets more mastered and better and our manufacturing facilities improve, prices go down over console generations, not up, which just seems wild. And it also seems crazy because developers can't even make use of the technology because they still have to do cross-gen compatibility, not only with regular PlayStation 5, but also with PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro. And a game like Black Ops 6, which was chosen tactically, is a perfect example of this. Black Ops 6 is going to run on the base PlayStation 4 and the base Xbox One from last generation. And when you build a game with that backwards compatibility in mind, there are limitations to how much fancy graphics and upscaling and improvements in quality you can get on the current gen. I don't know exactly the amount of loss that we have there, but suffice to say, Black Ops 6 and almost any other game that comes out in any generation is going to be focusing on cross-gen compatibility because a ton of people have still not upgraded over the base PlayStation 4. That's still a pretty significant section of the gaming community, so we're still capped in that way. And even in the presentation, Sony mostly showed PlayStation 5 Pro rendering old games, but the comparisons were so marginally different. The differences were so slim. I had to get on my computer and zoom all the way in and look at the pixels and then kind of think about it for a little bit to even notice the differences. And I think that for the vast majority of the users, that's not going to matter. I'm a pro gamer. I got laser eyes and it's all the same to me. And I can think of exactly two scenarios where I think the PlayStation 5 Pro makes sense. Number one is if you've got an 8K TV and for whatever reason you really want to game in 8K, okay, good for you. It makes total sense. The upscaling will be lovely. And the second one is I think PSVR 2 could massively benefit from more console power and better upscaling. It is compatible with the PSVR 2. The consoles have struggled to output VR games at high resolution, and very high resolution is what you want when the VR screens are literally on top of your eyeballs. And you could use this technology to improve both frame rate, which is super important to avoid motion sickness, or overall quality in PSVR 2. But a PSVR 2 is like $500 in and of itself. You've spent $1,300 by the time you've got the two together, and you could get a PC and an Oculus for less than that. So at the end of the day, I think 99.5% of people are going to be just as happy with the base PlayStation 5 as they would be with the PlayStation 5 Pro. And if you want a gaming upgrade to improve your experience with this, I think you could get a whole PC for the same amount of money, or even a more powerful gaming PC for just slightly more money than the base PlayStation 5 Pro. I think it's a bad deal. I think Sony totally dropped the ball on this one. It's honestly kind of embarrassing. And I hope to God that Xbox, who's been doing better this console cycle, as far in my opinion anyway, decides to not release a pro version of their console and just kind of stick with what they've got. All right, guys, that's all for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.